What's up, squad? This is Brandon from the Bantu Sun. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, I was scrolling through some articles, and sure enough, I saw something that really caught my eye. BP JD Vance is in Armenia, and that, for those that follow geopolitics, that is a big deal. So, you can't say I didn't tell you guys. I've made videos in the past where I talk about can we trust these guys with NATO, and what Trump has done with his America First agenda is pretty much bring a lot of things that I expected to fruition. And that was going to be about they have to acquiesce Russia. The world is changing. The countries are big. Countries of the West, outside of the United States and Russia, are nowhere the size and capability to handle these rising giants. Whether you have 300 million people in Nigeria or 300 million people in Pakistan, or 1.4 billion people in China, and 1.5, 1.6 billion people in India. And the only real leverage the West has is resources, right? They have their resources. But you can't talk about resources without talking about the world's largest country, Russia. And what happened with Russia when it was the Soviet Union, it kind of broke down, fell apart, and it was in a state of chaos. And Putin was the leader that stepped in and put things together and bring it back under the third Rome, or bring it back under his empire or Russian sovereignty. He became the strong man to keep the Russian state together, gave it to still in his spine once again. And this is unacceptable. If you're in the West or American leadership, you need to utilize Russia for your plans. When China, India, or one of these other powers try to challenge you, you need to be able to strangle their resources, cut their gas off, cut their oil off. It's going to unfortunately be a lot more Irans where you have these masses of people looking to exercise autonomy, but you're going to have the have nots and the have yachts. It's going to have the power or resources in few hands. And this is the only way I see that the West has. And I think that's why you see them so intently and intensely on things such as EVs, controlling the grid, uh, robotics, AI, which becomes basically a productivity multiplier. So you can do the jobs of 15, 20 people with AI. So in order to do this, this is all resource sensitive and all resource intensive. And you can't have a lot of resources without including Russia, one of the wealthiest country as far as natural resources on the planet, and the largest country in the world on the planet. The only problem is they're independent. So slowly but surely, the West has been chipping away, itching NATO towards Russia, and it finally broke what I call the crossing the Rubicon with trying to break Ukraine away. But I said if the West can get Ukraine, Russia's done for, because you can have Poland there and Ukraine there, breaking Russia off from the rest of Western Europe. You have Turkey on the other side, which is a NATO member, and now you have the ability to do what? Break into the Caucasus, the Southern Caucasus, your Georgia, your Armenias. And guess where JD Vance is? Armenia. He's in Yerevan, Armenia, and he just basically said he's offering a deal and an investment of $9 billion into the Armenian economy. Now, this is right in the back. The Trojan horse is this is all part of Trump's idea or Trump's ability to garner peace between Azerbaijan and Armenia. For those that don't remember, there was a kerfuffle between these two countries. It's a historical kerfuffle over this area called Nagorno-Karabakh within Azerbaijan, but was primarily ethnically Armenia. Armenia at that time, with the war with Azerbaijan, took sovereignty over it, but then Azerbaijan became stronger, and with the assistance of their Turkish allies and President Erdogan, they were able to take this land back. The problem is there's still another chunk of Turks, or what you could say Azerbaijani people, in an area called Nakhchivan, which is separated by a slither of Armenia. So the question is, how do the Azerbaijani people connect their Caspian coast with their Western neighbors? without crossing that corridor. And Azerbaijan they had a couple options. They could have just took the whole thing or tried to take the whole thing, but they said they wanted a corridor and they wanted to administer the corridor. The whole Trump peace plan was America will go in, help help finance, administer, organize this, but the corridor would separate. The Azerbaijanis will get that corridor, but the Armenians will administer the corridor. So it's kind of like a meeting in the middle, right? Because before it was all Armenian territory, but now they have to concede this to the Azerbaijanis. Now, previously, if Azerbaijan wanted to go to this part of their country, they had to travel along the border of Iran, which was putting money in Iranian coffers. It was very lucrative for them, as some people say. Also, this is the route that Iran has as the backstop because it can go through Armenia and go through Georgia and reach the Black Sea that way and get onto global seas. It's more of a backstop. They do have the Persian Gulf, but shows you how critical this area is. And the reason why this is so important, because Armenia really has the ability to be Israel of the Caucasus, right? First thing they're talking about doing when JD Vance is over here, he's saying they're going to do a $9 billion investment, and about half of that is going to be in trade and commerce, but the other half is going to be in nuclear energy or civilian nuclear use, which is going to require American expertise. So basically, they need American engineers and scientists and who know what other type of intelligence people within inside Armenia to help it cope. And Armenian GDP, the country is very small. It's only 3 million people. And with a GDP of roughly around $30 billion. You throw $9 billion in a country like that overnight, it doesn't take much to get these guys up to scale. There's not that many people. It's highly mountainous, which makes it very defensible. And it's Western leaning now. This is a situation where America can and they're flanking the Turks. They're flanking Turkey right now. Now, Turkey has been getting a lot of wins and they've been getting a lot of free will to do a lot of things at the expense of the Russians, I mind you. But the Americans now have another Western ally, just like they have Jews in Israel within the Middle East. Now they can have Christians between this Islamic region of the world, surrounded by the Turks on either side and the Persians to the south. And then you have those like the Chechnya, those Islamic regions of southern Russia to the north. So this gives the West the ability to get a friendly country in a part of the world they don't have access to. And as I said, what they do with that Caucasus, don't be surprised like how long until Americans start talking to Uzbeks. Like this is absolutely insane that America has been able to penetrate this far within Eurasia. And you can't do anything but blame the Russians for this. The Russians have repeatedly been cautious. And I don't know if they was trying to win an award for being the good guys or morally righteous, but they have conceded so much land. And every time they conceded, the West got stronger. So whether that's the concessions they made through the Arab Spring, they didn't go in there full-heartedly and defend Bashar al-Assad. Whether you're talking about Armenia is making deals with America because Russia didn't come down and defend them against Turkey and Azerbaijan. Armenia was kind of forced to run into the hands of the Americans at this stage. If they want to maintain any type of sovereignty, this small nation was about to be swallowed whole by its neighbors. And then you have this situation where Ukraine, when they go in Ukraine, they go in measured. They only want the parts that speak Russian. Like, if this was America, they would have annexed Kyiv overnight. And stronger, all Russia has done has led military enforcements, technological enforcements coming to Ukraine. And last time I've heard from the numbers that's got out, there's about a 2-to-1 ratio loss for the Russians against Ukrainian in the Russian-Ukraine war. Like the Ukrainians are bleeding the Russians slowly. So when a situation like this happens, where you have the Americans literally putting nuclear technology within inside of Armenia, the Russians are mum. They can't do anything. They can't exercise strength. They're using Africans. They're luring foreign soldiers. They're luring Africans to come fight in Russia. I just read a story that Poland's GD exports are actually surpassing that for the first time. They're surpassing Russian exports. Russia is an energy behemoth, but due to sanctions and isolation, they haven't been able to make as much money. So they're slowly, their light is being dimmed to put the pain on. And I think they're trying to put the pain on, the West being they, trying to put the pain on because they want regime change. They want leadership more amenable to Western leadership that will get in line as needed and be a hammer for the West on the other that can operate deep within inside the Asian continent. As well, it will secure the Arctic, where you have all these European countries or these Western countries that control the Arctic on one accord. Canada, um, Norway, UK, Russia, like all these countries will be on the same page. And this will give them such an opportunity to push their influence on the lower countries or the equator countries or the southern countries, so to speak, as need be, through their strength, through their natural resources. So this is really interesting on so many fronts. One, it screams once again how Russia is losing so much power and leverage in the world. Their economy is being squeezed on a daily basis. Even now, you see the situation where the Americans are getting the Indians to slow down on importing that Russian oil. The Indians were saving Russia for a moment there, the Indians and Chinese. Now they're getting the Indians to come down for that crazy trade deal. I don't know why Indians accepted it, but they did. And then they're running low on manpower, or they're hurting on manpower. They're extremely conservative. They don't have the exports they do. So the amount of time for the reserves keeps trickling down, and the people within inside Russia start feeling the pressure. Unfortunately, this is the paradigm that has resulted from this conservative behavior that the Russians have experienced. Also, you have the story of now, do we have an Israel in the Caucasus now? How much money in development technology is America going to put into Armenia? It's crazy. $9 billion overnight in a $30 billion GDP country. This transforms the game. And this also gives the West a hedge against the Turks if they ever feel as though they get too uppity. The Armenians will be the cop on the beat, and who knows how much technology they're going to put in this place between satellite surveillance ability, the ability to hack cyber warfare, conduct warfare from this part of the world. Like I said, it really gives America deep within inside the Eurasian continent. Because beyond this, you're right next door. You're right inside of Central Asia, those stands, the Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, etc. But that sits in the center of all the great powers that are in Eurasia: the China, the Russia, Pakistan, India, Turkey. Now you're got that rear flank right now if you're able to penetrate that area. So that's going to be absolutely insane. So I just thought this was a really small story but it had very big implications. So I'd like to hear your thoughts below. If you have any insight, make sure you like, share, subscribe if you enjoy the content. And until next time, take care. Bantu up.